Welcome to Behind the Screen, where we take you past the pixels and into the real lives of content creators, streamers, and artists from around the world. In this series, we explore the journeys, inspirations, and challenges that shape the people behind the screens. From epic gaming moments and creative breakthroughs to the everyday struggles of life, each episode brings you closer to the heart of what it means to be a creator in today's digital landscape. Hosted by DG, this series is all about connection, inspiration, and celebrating the passion that drives us all. Today, Digi sits down with MysticX6. So, grab your favorite snack, settle in, and enjoy this episode of Behind the Screen.
Yeah, you did mention about just building a community, so that's kind of what you want to do with the channel overall?
Yeah, just like have a place for people to like come to and just be able to like, chill out a couple hours every night and just, let loose. Well, not let loose, but just kind of like decompress kind of.
Got it. So, I mean, you started off with the YouTube, but you said that you weren't too agreeable with the Discord. Like, what was your opinion of Discord during that time?
I just felt like, like none of these people are gonna get like my humor, or like, like they're just people online who just kind of want to like make it, like, they don't really want to be friends. So that's kind of like what turned me away from all that, because I used to play a lot with my friends and record that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this is a genuine friendship, like, I'm playing with my friends. But then I realized, like, well, you know what, like, the only way I can really figure out if people want to be friends and play games with me, and then as a byproduct get good content, is by, putting myself out there.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, it's weird because everybody seems to be in that same state of mind of like, oh, I'm too late to the game. YouTube started in 2008. It's 2024. YouTube is like already extremely packed with a ton of people, especially if you add the topic of gaming into it. Mm-hmm. So when I heard, for example, I don't know if you've ever followed him, Pirate Software. I don't know if you've ever heard about him. He does a lot of stuff on TikTok, and he is more on the development gaming side. But he's fantastic because he also addresses like the mental health aspect of things, which is something that we'll get into soon with your psychology background. Mm-hmm. But he did say he was answering to one of his chatters, because his chatter said like, hey, what advice do you have to somebody who's trying to get into this business now, even though it's extremely saturated? And then he said, listen, everybody has their own voice. Everybody has something to say. And you are you. There's only one person that's you. And so it's always good to give it a chance, because you don't know what other people are going to gravitate towards you. And that's kind of what inspired me to do this stuff as well, because, yeah, the big name YouTubers, the big name Twitch streamers and all that. And they're great, but there have been times in everybody's life on the internet that they've just encountered this random stranger that might have one or two subscribers, and you're like, damn, this guy like really gets me. I really want to follow him. And I mentioned this in my previous interview, saying that sometimes what I do is I look for YouTube creators that have 10 or less subscribers, and I check out their content. And sometimes I'm like, dude, how the hell do you have 10 subscribers? Your content is amazing. And I see them grow as they keep at it. So it's a wonderful experience. And so I definitely agree with you on that sense. So moving more into the psychology aspect of things. So why then, if you are in college right now, am I not mistaken?
Yeah, I'm in college, yes.
Yeah. So why is it that you didn't jump into gaming if that was like your passion? Why go into psychology?
So originally that was the plan. So like I said, in high school, when I got there, I was like, I'm gonna do comp sci. I'm like 100 figures. I'm like out of university, or 6 figures. Sorry. I'm like, I'm loving that. So I'm like, I'm gonna get my money. I'm gonna be rich. But then it was like my second year of high school where I'm like, you know what? I just realized I don't know what computer science is. And so I was like, but like I love gaming, and I always tell my family like, oh, I want to be a content creator, I want to do this. And coming from like a Hispanic background, they're just like, well, what is that? They're like, is that even real? Like, can you make money off that? I'm like, well, I can. And they're just like, we don't know. They're like, you should find like a stable job. And so I started streaming, and I got really into it, and I was like, I love it. And I remember April 13th of 2021, I think, I became an affiliate with Twitch. And I remember I was so excited, but I was still a minor. So I was like, hey, Mom, I need your social security for this, blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
And
wow.
she was like, reasonably, she was like, is this a scam? And I was like, no, Mom, like, this is like a big site. Like, this isn't a scam. And she basically told me no. And in that moment, I felt like my dreams just shut down, because I was like, well, this is it for me. But then the next day, she's like, you know what? Like, I looked into it. It's real. Go ahead. She's like, I trust you. And, like, if this is what you want, we're behind you 100%. So that felt really special. And then I played a lot of competitive games. Like, I loved shooters. Shooters were, like, my favorite games to play. And then Siege and Valorant. Those were, like, my big two. And I signed up for, like, an NCAA, like, website thing to get scouted out by schools.
Really?
And there was one school that offered me a full ride to go play for their esports team.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, I'm so down for that. I'm like, yes, like, I'm like, that's awesome. But it was in Michigan, and I'm in California, so I was like, ooh, that's a little far. So I decided to go more local with my school. But at that point, I'd kind of like accepted, like, you know what, like, I'm never gonna go pro. I'm like, YouTube might never take off for me. So I was like, it's okay. But I still kept uploading, like, for fun, because end of the day, I still loved content creation. And I was like, I'm like, maybe this won't be a career, but, this will be a hobby that I can do on the side. But I just kept streaming. I kept making videos, and eventually I started getting sponsorships. And I was like, hey, you know what? Like, I can do this. So I try to balance both. But yeah, it's just, I love both things. So, it was just kind of like, hey, like, I'm going to do both because I can.
So you mentioned that in competitive gaming, I mean, you got a full ride. So we're talking about that you really took this super seriously when it comes to competitive shooters.
Mm-hmm.
So let me take a pause here. What do you think, or what is your opinion now that, from what I read, that the Olympics are implementing esports now into their next Olympics? And it's actually in California now that I realize it's in LA.
There's a chance for me. That's what I'm hearing. But no. I think it's good, because although a lot of people don't see it as a actual sport, mm-hmm. I don't think it's like ever that serious to where it's like, oh, you can't do this because you're not running, or you're not physically like doing this or that. I'm like, okay, I'm like, chill out, because I'm like, yeah, maybe they're sitting in a chair 8 hours a day gaming, but I'm like, they're still practicing, they're still learning strats, they're still doing new things. So I think that's, like, really important, because I'm like, hey, like, they're really good at this. Like, why shouldn't we, like, reward them? And then, because I remember one interview that I never, like, forget about is when this kid, the guy who beat Tetris, I think either he was being interviewed, or the newscaster was like, oh, I guess I should just play video games and make millions of dollars. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
I was like, okay, lady, hop on Tetris right now. Try and get over 100,000 your first run. Do it. I was heated.
Absolutely. It's always been pretty interesting how, even way back when I was way younger, there was always that stigma of the nerd and the basement and this and that. And now that this has grown into a multi-billion-dollar industry, we still get those jokes. And that's weird. Like, why do we keep getting those jokes?
I think people still just don't get it, because, I mean, even, like, famous footballers, like, I've watched Neymar play CSGO, or Agüero play, like, CSGO, or games like that, and I'm like, why is no one saying anything about them, right? But it's like, when little Jimmy over there says he likes Fortnite, the whole world is like, oh, you're a nerd, and I'm just like, it's a game, like, you go there to have fun with your friends, or if you're competitive, you're trying to make a career out of this, and I was like, I don't see the issue.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's more of the fact that you tie it to financial success. So, nobody's going to go after that gamer that has 1 million subscribers and is doing, 5 figures a week while they're doing their own little stream, and everybody leaves them alone because they're like, oh, the guy is a business entrepreneur. Don't mess with the guy. But then you have somebody who has, 10 subscribers or 30 subscribers, and you're like, why are you wasting your time on that? But it's like they don't realize that this people that started with that half a million, they started off with one subscriber. So it's always brought that to my attention that we still get that criticism, we still get all of that stuff. Now, circling back to your psychology, so what was that moment in time where you were like, okay, now to computer science, yes to psychology, and did you have like gaming still in the back of your mind that you could do something with that, mixing it with psych?
I'm so happy you asked that. So, I don't remember the exact day, and I wish I did, but I remember my psychology teacher was also my AP Euro history teacher, and I loved him. I was like, you're awesome. Like, the way you teach keeps me engaged. And being like a student that could never really focus in class, I was like, this is perfect. This is what I needed. So I took a psychology class, and I remember the first like 2 months I hated it because I was like, I don't get it, because it was like the history of psychology and then like the brain and like the ears and kind of like all of like its parts. And I was like, why do I care about that? Like, I'm like, teach me the cool stuff. And then I remember, I think it was like the very beginning of like my 3rd month of senior year, he started talking about more about like emotions and why we feel what we feel and stuff like that. And I was like, that's so cool. And then around the same time, I'd also started going to therapy. So it's just, and then my brother, he got a psychology degree as well. So there was just so much psychology like around me that I was just like, you know what? I'm like, this is really cool. So it's like, no matter who I talked to, like there was always someone that I could like talk to about what I was learning. So it always made me feel like, you know what? I'm like, this is good. I'm like, this is a career where I can help people like feel better. If they're down, I can try and get them out of it. Because I remember I had a really low point in my senior year, and then by the end, I remember, and I'll never forget those words. My therapist is like, from the first day that I met you to today, our last session, he's like, it's almost like I can't even recognize you. He's like, you've changed so much and for the better. And he's like, and I'm so happy to have like gone through that with you. So that was when I was like, I want to do this for other people. I'm like, I want to be able to like help that change. And then I thought of doing that with content creation, because another thing too is, I mean, maybe less now than it was before, but stigma around like therapy, how like I'll talk to my family about it. They're like, you know, during our time, if you went to therapy, it's because you were crazy, you know. And I'm like, wow. And then now, even then, it's like there's not as much stigma, but now it's just kind of like, oh wow, like you have to go to therapy. It's like, what's wrong with you, you know? So it's like, at least like with content creation, that's still that was something I had at the back of my head, because I was like, I could kind of like give advice to people. And like, and then one thing I always laughed with, like Healthy Gamer GG or Dr. Ken, he was like, guys, this is my opinion. This is not professional advice. This is just simply my thoughts and ideas on this like subject. And then I was like, one, I'd always love to do that, but two, it's just nice just knowing, or it's like, hey, maybe these people can't get help themselves, so it's good that at least they can come here, and you know, maybe I can offer a little bit of solace, or like, hey, you know, like if life's going this way, you know, maybe try something else, or you know, maybe try this, you know, just like give a little push in the right direction, to help a bit.
Nice. So you mentioned that you were in a downstate during your senior year. Tell me a little bit about that if you can.
Okay. So one thing for sure was deciding like where to go to school, because I was like, well, esports has like been a dream of mine, and I was like, and actually being able to like achieve that was like such a cool idea. But I was like, if going to school like an hour away from where I lived felt hard, I'm like, how am I gonna deal with being like, I don't know, however far Michigan is from California?
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't think I can do that. So that was kind of like weighing on me. And then school in general had just gotten like really tough on me, because there was like a lot of pressure to like do good, maintain my grades, and then like I still wanted to keep doing content creation, and it was just really tough on me. There was like relationship problems, what is like breakups with friends, like friend groups breaking apart and stuff. So there was just like so much that was happening, and I tried to kind of like internalize it all, but you know, it just came crumbling down. And then I remember like finally admitting to my mom, I'm like, hey mom, you know what? I'm like, I don't think I'm okay. And I was like, I'd like to go to therapy. I'm like, I think I need it.
Wow, that's a big step. And so what was your mother's and family's reactions to that?
At first my mom felt like she was a horrible mother because she didn't realize it. And I told her, I'm like, well, no mom, I'm like, I'd never show you that. I'm like, because like, you know, it's something that I thought I could get through myself. But I was like, you know, like I was real with myself, and I was like, I think I need to get professional help. And and she just accepted that, and she was like, perfect. So she immediately started looking for where I can do it, where I can go, or if we can do it online, stuff like that. And yeah, she was just totally supportive of it.
So, was gaming a healthy part of your growth, mentally speaking, or was it more of a crutch? Let's say like fast food, that people sometimes just eat fast food because they don't feel good, and it just takes them even more down and downward spiral.
It's that one's definitely 50-50 because my junior year was during quarantine. So I'm thinking like, oh hell yeah! I'm like, I can play video games all day. Like I would not pay attention in any of my classes, and it'd be awesome
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, have your camera on. I'm like, yeah, 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 and then like I give like a reaction when it's like when I like ace or something, and
Yeah.
then they're like, Jared, you're really excited. I'm like, yeah, I love calculus. Like this is
Oh
so
yeah,
cool.
definitely.
And some teachers didn't care. Some of them were like, okay, stop what you're doing. And I was like, okay, my bad. But eventually I was like, man, I miss my friends. I miss doing stuff, seeing people. And then in general too, I was a very competitive person.
Yeah.
Like to the point where it was bad for my health, I would say, because like I'm a huge rager, which usually it's not a problem because like that's great for funny moments, but like I had times where I was like, did I like hurt my wrist from like smashing my table or something? So I was like, oof. I was like, okay. So around that time was also where I was like, maybe competitive isn't for me, because I was thinking, I'm like, let's say I do make it at esports. I'm like, let's say I am like, on the big stage, and I was like, how's it gonna look if I'm over here smashing my keyboard or the table or something? So I was like, that's not a good look. So that was like another thing. So it was like, it was a crutch because it's like games made me feel better, but they were also part of the reason that I felt kind of like worse. So it was just kind of like this like love-hate relationship, I guess. Like it was like a toxic relationship with video games.
Interesting. So you did mention that you were stuck in quarantine while you were in school. Now, I haven't had the experience to talk to somebody that was going through that, because mainly I was working, but it was a professional job, so it's a different environment. How did that feel as a student? To I'm guessing in the beginning it was like fun because you're kinda off of school, but what happened once this started stretching out into the long run for you?
Oh man, there was okay. So that was also, it's like during that time, I think I was going through like my first breakup as well.
Oh wow.
So it was like I could handle that fine, but she was in like all my classes, so like I'd always see her, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, and then I'd play like Juice World or something. Um, but I was like, so that was definitely like hitting me hard, and on top of that, like I said, it was just like, I sit in a chair all day, which like I already did with gaming, but now it's like, okay, now I have to learn these subjects I don't care about. I'm like, I don't really want to be here. So, and then like I said, like gaming, like I would do it so much that like I got bored of it. It's because it's like, one, I hated playing games by myself. So the only games my friends would want to play was Valorant, which I didn't mind Valorant for a long time. I actually really enjoyed it. But
Yeah.
when I got super competitive and I'm like, I want to go pro, I started to hate it. Like I despised it so much. Like if I did good, I was like, hell yeah. If I did bad, I'm worthless. I'm like, I suck at this game and I should never touch it again.
Wow.
But it was like, instead of like, hey, let me stop playing this game and go to this other game that'll make me feel better, I'm like, no, I'm gonna queue again and I'm gonna do good. And then I did worse. And I was like,
So let's say that you are talking to this mystic back when they were doing that time, and now talking to you, the more adult mystic with more knowledge, psychological knowledge, and going through therapy. Like, what would you address with that younger self, or what would you say to them to address that?
I'd tell them to run. Like, I don't know what it was, but every time I was going through something and I'd go out on a run, I felt so at peace with myself. So I would tell them, like, put on your headphones and just go outside. Just start running. It's like just stop thinking and just start running. For sure. And then the other thing I would tell them is like, hey, one thing I've learned now. So I recently got into shooters again because like I had
Yeah.
that itch for it,
Yeah.
And before, like I said, like I would play, and if I died or we lost, like I would rage, yell, and smack my table. And now I yell, but now it's just kind of like, like, haha, guys, I died, damn it. Versus before, it was like genuine rage, and it's just kind of like what like my therapist had taught me, where it was just like, hey, like you gotta breathe, you gotta think about like why you're angry, if you're really angry, and they're also like, don't talk down to yourself. They're like, how do you expect yourself to perform if you're constantly bringing yourself down? And I'm like, you real for that? I'm like, whoa. So that's definitely something I'd be. I'm like, how do you expect to be the best if you're calling yourself the worst? And then young Mystic would be like, damn, you cooking out here.
So it is interesting because you did have those moments that were so extreme and far apart, where you had like this high of just wanting to be the best, of just going into competitive gaming, but you were also experiencing these extreme emotions, and it was either the big hurrah for winning, and or you were just like self mutilating yourself in a matter, so to speak, not physically, but just telling yourself like, oh, I'm the absolute worst. So, where do you think that came from? Because I mean, was it during the pandemic that you started developing these feelings because being so isolated, or did you already have that from before?
I think that was something that I had for a long time. So like growing up, I was always like compared to my older brother. It's like, well, your older brother's doing this and your older brother's doing that, and I was like, haha, well, I'm not him. And I had a lot of problems in school, just because like I couldn't focus, I couldn't like really sit down, I couldn't pay attention. So like I never had bad grades, but like I just wasn't a good student. And my family, it's back then, like we didn't, oh, ADHD, what's that? No, it was just like, oh, he's stupid, right? Like he's a burro, right? Like he just doesn't pay attention. And then growing up, when I finally got diagnosed, I'd look at my family and I was like, I think I'm owed several apologies. I was like, for over the years. So I think that definitely like had a role, not necessarily like with my family, but it's just I was always kind of like being like insulted almost about like who I was. Yeah. And then with gaming being like the only thing that I felt like this is what I can be good at, I'd put a ton of pressure on myself to be the best. So when I wasn't the best, I was like, I'm like your dog. I was like, you're garbage. You're horrible. Which is bad, right? Because I'm like 16, so I'm like, oh, I just want to play games, But it's just like, you're 16. How can you expect to compete against people who are like professional level players?
Absolutely. So then you basically just had this little goblin in the back of your mind constantly telling you like you're the worst, you're awful, you can't, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, dude, that guy would not shut up.
So now that you are more into psychology, are you more hyper aware of these thoughts? Because I know therapy doesn't erase them. It just gives you the tools to manage them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, I definitely still have moments where, like, I call myself, like, an idiot or something. And I still definitely insult myself. But now I've definitely managed to turn it more into, like, a joking matter instead of, like, you're garbage, you're garbage, you're garbage. Now it's just like, oh, I'm stupid. And just play it off. Because I'm like, at the end of the game, like, it really is just a game. Which I remember, like, hearing that when I was, like, a sophomore or a junior. I'd look at my family like, what? It's not just the game. And now I'm like, it is just the game. And I was like, if I want to do something with it, it's different. But at the end of the day, like, it really is pixels on a screen. Mm-hmm. And I should not let it have this much control over me. I'm like, I kind of, like, control the game doesn't control me.
It seems like the way that you're using games is, like, a different tool now versus how you were using it back then.
Yeah, now I can find, like, the fun in them versus just straight competitive. And like I said, like, I quit shooters for a long time. Like, the last time I played Siege and Valorant was over, like, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. So, like, I was happy, I was like, holy. But I was just like, man, I miss that feeling of, like, competitiveness, like, being excited. Like, because it's like when you play a single-player game, it's just kind of like, oh, that's so cool, I got this item. And then you, like, move on. But with shooters, when, like, I don't think anything's more satisfying than, like, getting an ace clutch. Like, oh my god, like, every time I got one of those, I'd yell at the top of my lungs to the point where, like, I'd lose my voice. But I didn't mind because I felt on top of the world. I was like, I'm the best. I'm like, I'm the greatest. And now I can say that and not think, like, I'm gonna go pro. Now I say that, I'm like, alright, next round, let's do it again.
So what does that mean, the ace clutch?
Oh, so it's like when you, like, take out the entire enemy team, like, by yourself. So there'll be, like, situations, like, yesterday, it was a 4v5, so like 4 people on my team, or me and 3 other people versus 5 people on the enemy team, and I killed 3 people, and then I had 10 seconds to enter the room and either plant or kill them off, and I think we were down to like 2 seconds, and then that's when I like got them both, and it was just such a satisfying feeling because that was like the game-winning round because we were 3-2, so if the team won, we'd go to overtime, and I'm like, if we go to overtime, that's 2 more chances to lose, and I'm like, I don't want that. So just finishing off the round, winning, like, it felt good. I'm like, I did that. I clutched up, and I'm like, who's the best? I'm the best.
So that's Valorant, no?
That was for Siege. That one.
Oh, Siege, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been quite a while since I played Siege. I just played it back when it was like 1.0, when they released that trailer, that infamous trailer that it was supposed to look like this high def type of hostage situation. And I used to play the old Rainbow Sieges as well.
Yeah.
So how did that feel with that first time that you got that ace clutch?
Oh, I felt so good because like I'd always make jokes with my friends how I'm like I don't show up until it matters. And I'm like the rest of the games I'm like I'll do okay. I'm like but when like the team needs me, when I have to like do my best, I'm like I always provide and I always do it. And it felt good because it was like even after 2.5 years of not playing this game, I'm like I haven't lost my touch. Like I still know how to play. I still kind of get like that flow state, like I'm still in the zone.
Got it. Yeah. So when I play these games, because I'm more of a single player type of guy, but when I play these games and I really get into them, mainly the one that I think that I've gravitated the most towards has been Overwatch, mostly because I am a character type of person. I like to connect with the character I'm playing as. So when I'm playing multiplayer games, it feels like you are doing super well, or I call it beginner's luck, or when you just start that session, but then you get this huge dip down that is just completely awful, like loss after loss after loss, and it's either you give up and you leave, or by some miracle you pull something off and you're like right back at it again. What is this? Is this your mind playing tricks on you, or is this like just your mind is thinking more about the losses than the wins in this situation?
This is so great. I love these. It's kind of both. So the way that I imagine it is, imagine a roller coaster that starts really high, right? So, like you said, that first game you dominate, right? So you're like at the peak of the roller coaster, and the only way that you can pick up speed is if you go down. So you plummet down, and those are the losses, those are the negative games, that's everything. And then eventually it's going to go back up, or like you said, you're going to quit. So either you start at the top and then it finishes at the bottom and that's it, or there's another like hump that you get over. There was at my school, we had a little event where it was a 24-hour stream where streamers would be given a 2-hour block. I was in one of those, and I was doing Valorant because I wanted to try out for the team, and I was like, hey, maybe some people from the team will watch me, maybe they'll want me on there. And I remember I was like, all right, my goal is just this. It's like at one point in the stream, I want to ace. I was like, that's the goal. The first game, the first round, I aced. Got all 5 enemy team members, and I was like, all right, this early, okay. Yeah. And then from that round, I played horrible the rest of the game. And then the next like 2-3 games that we did, same thing. It was awful, and I was like, oh my god. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I just embarrassed myself. What I think it is you set expectations for yourself. As soon as you did super good, now you're thinking, okay, this is how I have to play the rest of the game. So you try to just think like, oh, like I need this kill. So you kind of like zone out, right? Like all you're focused on is getting this kill. You forget, okay, I gotta be tactical, right? Like they have to come to me. I don't have to go to them. Which was a huge issue for me because I remember, like I talked about this in therapy and it always made me laugh because I'm talking about how to be better at video games to a therapist. But it was, he's like, you're getting desperate. He's like, all you want is to do good. He's like, but you don't want to like kind of like work towards it, right? He's like, you just want the kill. He's like, you're not actively trying to change your play style, or kind of like, oh, they're very aggressive, okay, then be more passive, or they're very passive, okay, then you play aggressively, or kind of like this balance of both. He's like, you have to like change how you play. He's like, you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect like a change. And he's like, what's that? I'm like, the definition of insanity. And he's like, exactly. So it definitely is just, it kind of is basically like kind of like beginner's luck, right? Like you said, like that first game, you don't have any expectations. You just go in there, you're like, I'm gonna have a good day, I'm gonna have a good game, I'm gonna have a good time with my friends, or like solo queuing, and then you do great. You're like, oh, hell yeah, okay, time to keep this up for, 6 hours, right? And, that's impossible. You can't play perfectly amazingly for 6 hours, or if you can, hey, kudos, right? Yeah. But it's just more or less, you think like, okay, I'm gonna play it 100% every single game, and when you don't, that just kind of keeps lowering you more and more and more until eventually you don't care at all, and then that's when you play better, right? Because you don't have any expectations for yourself. Like they're so like low that you're just kind of like, yeah, whatever happens.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. So getting this high of this victory actually could be a detriment for you because you are just so focused on what just happened and you just want to repeat that. But in games, you just have, especially in multiplayer games, you have to adapt yourself to the strategy, which then causes you to just keep losing, and then it just goes into this downward spiral where you think like, oh my gosh, this is just bad luck. What just happened? What did I just do? That's super interesting. I never thought about it like that. So then, as a pro player, then what are they doing differently? They're not setting expectations. They're just creating not false. What is it? Muscle reaction, reflexes, in order to not think and just act. Would that be the difference?
Essentially, because also it's like pro players, you know, like they practice a ton, especially like with their team. So it's like they have their strategy set up. It's like, all right, guys, if we go here, this is the plan. If we go here, that's the plan. If we play on this map, this is how we're gonna start off, right? And then also, it's just in general, it's like when you switch it, right? Like, let's say you just did super good this first round, right? You're like you said, you're high, like you're up there, like you're like, oh man, I did so good. Time to do it again. Whereas the other team's like, we did so bad. All right, guys, let's switch it up, right? Like our strategy didn't work. Let's try something new. Which like that was my issue back when I used to only, like, before I played Valorant, I only played Siege. I would do the same thing every round and expect that I'd ace and ace and ace. And when I wouldn't, I'm like, why is this game not working? You know, like, what am I doing wrong? Yeah. And then when I got to Valorant, that's what that game taught me. It taught me like, hey, you can't do the same thing every single time and expect to win. So I'm like, huh. So that's why with pro players, I think, like, you know, they're there to win, but they're also like, they know like, hey, we can't like expect to win every single round, every single game. So they just kind of go there and they're like, all right, guys, we know what we have to do, so let's do it. If it doesn't work out, well, damn, we have another round.
Gotcha. So then, what was it gonna go? Oh, I was gonna ask you as well, because you were just mentioning Rainbow Six Siege, but you were focused on a certain aspect of it, which was causing you to lose. But then you switched over to Valorant. What did Valorant teach you that Rainbow Siege doesn't? You know, because it's a team-based shooter, isn't it?
Yeah. So firstly, it was the people that I played with. So originally, when I played Siege, I only played with one other friend, or we originally played with two other friends. So it was me, him, and then another friend. The other friend just played for fun. Just, you know, play to enjoy it, you know, like, just have a good time. Yeah. And my friend and I, we're just kind of like, hey, like, we're playing this to win. We're playing this to be good, to maybe go pro. So, like, that didn't work for us. And then now you have 2 players and then 3 randoms, right? And sometimes these randoms, you know, sometimes they want to work with you. Sometimes they want to be cool. Others are just toxic for the sake of being toxic. Yeah. When I switched over to Valorant, I almost always had a full squad. We were either always 3, 4, or 5 people. So there was a lot more, like, kind of like connection with the team, because we always knew what we were thinking. We always knew how we played. And then in general, actually, funnily enough, my AP Gov teacher, he was a semi-pro when he was in high school. Really? He used to play, I think, CS 1.6 or Source, whichever came second. And he was like in a semi-pro league. And I remember he told us, like, I asked him one time, like, jokingly, I'm like, hey, you know, can you watch my gameplay and tell me what I can do better? He's like, okay. He's like, yeah. He's like, send me your link and we can, like, review it after school. So I was like, really? He goes, yeah. So I remember I sat down and then he'd watch it. And he's like, why are you pushing the same thing 4 times in a row? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, what? Like, what's the point of that? I'm like, well, I don't know. You know, he's like, what are you expecting to change? I'm like, well, I'm not sure. He's like, okay, that's your issue. He's like, why are you going to do the exact same thing every single round and not expect me to do a different angle? And I was like, well, I've always had fast reaction time. I was like, that's what kept me, like, in gaming. I was like, I'm fast, you know? And he's like, okay, but think about it like this. Who's going to be faster? You, who has to turn around and aim at me, or me, who's already behind you aiming at your head? And then I was like, meh. But that got me thinking. I was like, you know what? Like, he's right. I'm like, I can't keep doing the exact same thing and expect change. And I remember my friends made fun of me for like a month. I went to a wedding in Arizona with my family for, like, my, like family on my godparents' side.
Yeah.
And I sat there, and the entire wedding, I watched Valorant videos on how to get better on specific maps with specific agents, like how to improve my decision making and all this. And I remember I was so into it that, like, there'd be like girls being like, hey, you know, do you want to go dance? I would flat out ignore them because I was so locked into this video. And I remember the next morning, my family and I went to Waffle House, and they're like, yeah, you rejected so many girls to go dancing. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah. They're like, you're so into your little phone. I was like, I just blocked myself. I'm like, that's crazy. And then when I went back, I remember playing, and I was like a completely different person. My friends are like, what changed? And I'm like, I don't know, but, like, I'm feeling good.
Wow. So then, I mean, your go-to games right now would be Valorant and Siege.
Not Valorant. I vowed to never play that ever again. But
Really?
Siege, oh yeah, no, it was just bad. Like if I feel like if I played it again, maybe it would be different, but I'm just like no, because I'm like Valorant's just not fun for me anymore. I'm like Siege, I enjoy more because I've been playing that since I was a seventh grader, so I was 12, 13 years old,
Yeah.
and now I'm 20, so I played that for a long time. Versus Valorant, I started playing that like junior year, and then I stopped like beginning of college, so I'm not as attached to it. Um, I always referred to Siege as like the toxic ex that you can't get over, but now it's a healthy relationship.
So then, I mean, what happened? Like, what happened with Valorant because for you to just quit a game outright, something big happened.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it was definitely the rage because with Siege I used to rage a lot, but with Valorant, originally I had applied to like esports, like hey, I want to do Valorant, but it was like I had a second choice. So I was like I can do Siege, and they were like hey, our Valorant team's full, but would you want to play for like on the Siege team? And I was like sure man, anything that's pro. Um, so that already kind of killed my love for Valorant a bit because it's like okay, like I'm already kind of like not as good for Valorant. So I was like okay. And then in general, like I said, it was one, the people that I played with, like our friendship kind of like ended off. So now it's just
Yeah.
me and my buddy. And then us duo queuing, I felt bad because I could play like 3 games before I throw a little tantrum and stop playing.
Yeah.
So in general, I just have like bad memories with the game. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, maybe I could go back to it and enjoy it or have fun or maybe even be better. But I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, the game didn't make me happy. Yeah, like I didn't enjoy it. I'm like, at least with Siege, like I had fond memories with it. Versus with Valorant, it was just kind of like I don't like you.
Yeah, I've heard that people that actually want to do something for a living or want to make a career out of it, when it comes to stuff like video games or art or stuff like that, there is that huge risk that you just hate what got you into that field in the first place. You might be passionate about, for example, Valorant, but then some people end up like you, that they just absolutely hate the game. It just becomes work, and that's gonna be a huge struggle.
Yeah, I remember one time I was like, you know what? I'm like, what if I tried the game again? So I downloaded it. I logged in. I played a single deathmatch. I didn't even last a minute in that deathmatch before I ulted forward. I was like, "Yep, no, I knew what I was I knew what I was getting myself into." Uninstalled, and I was like, I'm never going back to that ever again.
Got it. So then, and this is more for the viewers, can you just explain the difference between Valorant and Siege? I mean, are they both hero shooters or?
Sort of. I mean, basically, yes. So in Siege, you have operators, which is like, you have this character who has a sledgehammer who can breach like soft walls. So it's like a wall that isn't reinforced. You have other operators that can place something on that wall to destroy it, like a reinforced wall. And it's like attackers, defenders. So that's something that I always loved about it because it was different, right? Like you had these attackers and you had these defenders, and they were two completely different things. With Valorant, it's a hero shooter. But that one, it's the exact same thing on both sides. Like, hey, like you have these, I don't know how many. I think there's like 20, maybe 25. I don't remember. But it's those 25s that are on attack are the same on defense. So that's already something that kind of turned me away. And then in general, I just like Siege more because it was just more of a tactical shooter. Now, I don't know what it is, but it's just like I said, it's like having played that for so long, it's like it makes more sense to me. Like with Valorant, it made sense because I played CS:GO for a couple hundred hours. So like I got into that. So when I moved over to Valorant, I was like, okay, I'm like it's like it makes sense. Like this is just like CS:GO. But with Siege, it was just something completely different where it was both fast paced and extremely slow. Where it's just like you think, oh, 3 minutes in a round, that's plenty, and then all of a sudden you have 15 seconds, and you're like, what happened to my time? And then Siege's games are shorter, but they take up like way more time. Like I feel like games take up an hour, when in reality it's like they probably don't take up more than like 30 minutes. Yeah. But it's just like and then it feels a little more stressful, but like in a good way where you're like, oh, I'm loving this.
Yeah, because you're constantly strategizing. That's the thing. Because my nephew as well plays Siege, and when I just saw him playing and he was getting into it, and I looked at it. I was like, this is not Rainbow Six. What the hell is this? Because when I used to play Rainbow Six way back when, Rainbow Six was a strategy game first and a shooter second. Because I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with the OG Rainbow Sixes games.
I played Vegas, the Vegas one, I think. Only.
Even farther than that.
No.
Vegas was the one that started the whole more action first-person shooter type of thing. But if you go even further back, the original Rainbow Six, you would spend 15 to 20 minutes looking at blueprints and you had to program the AI because it was just you. And you had to program the AI as to how they were going to breach through the whole the blueprint and the map. And then you had to control them at the same time, and one shot was one kill. So if you got shot by somebody, that's it. You're done. Out. So it's such a stark difference from the Rainbow Six that I used to play back in high school to this Rainbow Six now, which actually looks pretty damn fun. I've played it before, and I've gotten to those points where it's just me against like 3. And for me, I'm not a competitive multiplayer, so it ramps up my anxiety because I know everybody's watching my screen. So I'm trying to just navigate through. And for me, it's awful. I mean, these types of games, they just give me this stage fright. And I know that I'm going to play not so well because you have so many people just looking at your screen, and if you have the audio on, you know that people are going to be screaming at you saying, what are you doing, this and that, do that. So that is not my type of game. So how do you handle that pressure though? Because you've been to like tournaments and stuff, and you know that you have this crowd that is like on your screen all the time. Do you just push that away, or are you aware of it?
Oh, dude, I love that. I always say I'm a little egoist, that I love that because in psychology we learned about a graph called the Yerkes-Dodson. Like, yep. I forgot what, but it's like at a certain amount of stress, you perform at your peak performance. But it's like if you have too much stress, then you break. If you have too little, you're overconfident. And for me, that stress just always hits the perfect line of, okay, like all my teammates are dead, so I have 4 eyes on me, and then if there's a crowd, they're all watching me, or I'm streaming or something, like I know there's a ton of people watching me. I'm like, okay, I'm like, you know what, like I don't care if I lose. I'm like, I just want to put on a performance, because I always like the flashy roles, like the fraggers, the one that are supposed to get the kills. So yeah. I'm like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm like, this is my game, this is my round. And sometimes, you know, I die to the first person, right? I don't kill anyone, or other times die to the last person or kill them all. It's such a good feeling, like, no matter what. Well, I guess not when I die first, but it's just so satisfying because it's like, yeah, like look what I can do, right? It's like, you know, they think, oh, you know, it's just another guy, like, oh, he lost this. That's the other thing too. When I get doubted, that's when I ramp it up like 2 levels because they're like, oh, GG's guys, and I'm like, hey, I'm like the game doesn't say defeat. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, which is something I always loved. Just proving people wrong was such a satisfying feeling. And I don't know, it's just as soon as I see like 1v5, I got this like flow state of just like, it felt like everything around me disappeared and all that was here was like me and my computer, and I was like, okay, this is everything in this moment in time that matters, and I would just go.
So it's funny though, because you did mention that you had to deal with social anxiety and ADHD. Mm-hmm. So how does that mix in? Because you just tell me that you get a high out of people watching you. I mean, wouldn't that be a nightmare for somebody who has social anxiety?
With gaming, it always felt different. Like, if, like, when I'd go out to talk to people, I'd be like, hi, you know, like I stuttered, I did that, but when I was gaming, I felt like I was a different person, you know? I guess that's something that I always talked about, too, like, my therapist, where I was like, I was surprised that I never got, like, DID, dissociative identity disorder, which is basically you have, like, you kind of, like, multiple personalities, because I always felt like I was kind of like a split person, where it's like there's like, you know, Jared, who on the outside is just, you know, very timid, you know, a little quieter, because like I was always very like a very loud person, like I am extroverted, but I just had trouble talking to people, where I was always just very like, ooh, like I don't want to say the wrong thing, I don't want to do the wrong thing, like what if everyone's looking at me while I'm walking to class, or while I'm doing this action or doing that, or what if I eat funny? But when I was gaming, I'm like, I don't care what you think, the only thing that matters is what's on the scoreboard.
Interesting. That I can see why you would feel that you have like two split personalities there. So, I mean, being behind that screen, does it give you a sense of comfort, and that's what helps you shut down that social anxiety? Or maybe is it because your brain is so focused on the game or the competitive aspect to it that that social anxiety is nowhere to be seen? It just gets shut down.
Again, probably it's like a little bit of both, where it's just like this screen is like, it's like a little barrier. It's like I said, it's like all that matters is what's happening here. It's like it doesn't matter how many people are watching me. It's like, because it's like, if I lose, I know they're gonna like insult me. If I win, some people are gonna insult me. Some people are gonna be like, "Holy crap, he's the greatest of all time." So it's like I can push all that out and be like, I don't care. All I want to do is like do good for this team, or like do good this round. But also it was just kind of like, hey, it's like no matter what happens, like I said, it was a game. But see, it's like that always made me laugh, because I was like, I try to accept that it was just a game, but I was also like, this is life or death. Either I win or I lose. Like there was no gray area. Which was something that always made me giggle, because I'm just like, I put so much importance on it, when like in like the long run it didn't really matter, but in that moment it felt like this is the only thing in the world that matters to me.
Wow. And so, do you think that that translates also into content creation? Like, part of your brain is, when you're uploading this stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, this was so crappy. This was an awful play. I'm not going to do well. This video is not going to do well. Is your social anxiety kicking up there, thinking of how many people are going to see that?
Sometimes, yeah. I definitely... I was definitely like in the thought process when I started playing on YouTube, where I'm like, I'm gonna be the special one that all of a sudden I'm at 1 million subscribers, and obviously that didn't happen. But it was I don't remember when it was, but it was like I told you, when I did my very first keyframe, it was me putting distraction on an impact grenade and then throwing it and then having the word distraction follow it. And I was like, it took me like an hour to do, because I could not figure it out. I couldn't get it right, and I kept messing up. I kept changing the font size. I changed like 100 different things until I was like, this is good. And then I showed my friend the video, and then I told him, like, I just did all that work for like a 2-3 second like part of a clip that no one's gonna pay attention to. And then that kind of made me feel bad, because I'm like, what's the point of doing all this? He's like, did you like doing that? And I was like, well, yeah, like it looks cool. And he's like, that's all that matters. He's like, what matters is that you like what you did. And he's like, maybe no one's gonna notice it, right? He's like, and that's gonna suck. He's like, but at the end of the day, you learned something new, you enjoy doing it, so you're not losing anything by doing that. And I was like, holy moly. I'm like, y'all smell that? Because I think someone's cooking in here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a fantastic friend though, and great insight as well. It did happen to me as well when I started doing all of this, because you get it in your mind and you start thinking, man, I'm nailing this. I'm the special one. I know that this video is going to do like fantastic. But once I started getting that out of my mind and thinking about how funny is the edit that I'm making, am I making myself laugh as I'm editing this? And if I see myself doing that, and it's like, yeah, absolutely. I don't care who likes it or who doesn't. If it makes me laugh every time I see the video, or the funny edit that I did, or with the funny sound that I made, that's awesome. Or if I'm doing an interview and even if like 5 people watch it, that's fine. But you never know who you're going to strike, in terms of how they feel. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. Who never knows? But it's always just good to just throw it out there, because you never know who is listening that might be like, man, I got to meet this guy. And that's why I wanted to attack that psychological aspect with gaming, because I haven't spoken to anybody about that. So we're going into the personal, but now I want to move into the macro. Your thoughts on how psychology now is being used with these humongous companies in order to extract as much money as they can from their customers, using so many different types of we'll use the word techniques in order to get people to just fork over the wallet, and at the same time you don't feel fulfilled. You don't feel that you're getting a complete game.
So one thing, and the biggest game that I can think that like started all this, and maybe it started before, but for me, like the catalyst, as I see it, was Fortnite. And the reason was because it was such a simple game. You know, it was a battle royale, had goofy graphics, goofy gunplay. You know, it was like it's just like any battle royale, but just it felt like, you know, if I saw that, I'd be like, oh, okay, that looks like a mobile game, right? Yeah. And hey, check out this cool dance, check out this cool emote, and it's like, whoa, dude, that's so cool. And then it's like, oh, they have a battle pass, so basically you get these items, like you pay $10 and you get all this cool stuff. And then I remember when I'd play Siege, there was a battle pass. And I'm like, what? Any game that I started playing after that, there was a battle pass.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And then I think at that point, companies realized we can literally give them poop. And they'll be like, holy crap, I can make this poop pretty. You know? Because that's what they did. It's like they give you... this, like you said, like a poorly done game, and all they do is they keep throwing cosmetics your way, and they're just like here, and people just completely ignore it. And now people are starting to like wake up and realize like, hey, we don't like that. Like we want real good games, like how they used to be. Because like I look back at like Black Ops 2, and yeah, it had DLC, right? But those zombie maps were incredible. And then even like the multiplayer maps, sometimes they were like refurbished, right? You know, they were just used again, but they were reskinned. It was something new, and I was like, I love this. I was like, because it's like they brought back amazing maps, but now it's like, hey, let's bring back this map that everyone hated and do like nothing different. Or like Shipment, right? Shipment's been done 100 times. People don't care. People love Shipment, right? It's like you just like, it's such an iconic map where it's like it was in COD 4. I don't know if it was in 3. I want to say it was in 3. And then it was in World War II, it was in Modern Warfare 2019, and I think it was in even Modern Warfare 3, the newest one. So it's like they just keep reusing it, and I'm like, I don't mind that. I'm like, that's okay. But I think companies kind of notice like, hey, like people are starting to realize, hey, like we can give them whatever we want, and as long as we throw in some cosmetics in there, they're gonna want to buy it. Like even last night, I was playing Siege, and I don't know if I'm gonna play that for a long time or for a week, right? But I saw a Jaeger Elite skin, and I was ready to put down $20. I was like, $20 isn't a lot, but I was like, why? I'm like, what?
Wait a minute. Okay, I need to stop you right there because, and this is for the viewers as well. Here you will see the absolute difference in generation because you just said $20 is not that much for a skin. If you told me that when I was like full on into gaming and you told me, hey, let me get this horse armor for $20, I'd be like, get the hell out of here, dude.
Right? Because no, and like that's the thing, it's you try to like rationalize it, you try to justify it. Like I said, like a $45 knife on Valorant, I like
$45.
Oh man,
Jesus
I don't want to think about it. But like it was I think the like RGB katana. So it was literally a katana that lit up. It looked cool, and I was like, I'm buying it. I bought it, and then it took me like 15 minutes to realize this was the stupidest purchase I ever made. I felt cool at the beginning of the round when I'm like running around swinging it, and then I'm like, when am I gonna use a knife to kill a person in a competitive game? I'm like, there's no advantage, and I was like, I'm gonna get killed, and that's gonna cost us the round or something. So like, I was just like, that was a bad decision. I was like, that wasn't smart. But
so I mean, you did mention that, and so what? Let's focus on that. What went into your mind, and how was your process of thinking as you were looking through the store? You saw the knife, and then you bought it. Like, honestly.
There was nothing in there. I'm gonna be honest. Head was empty. I was like, it's a katana and it lights up, and I was like, I need that in my hands, because it's like you look at it, it's so what's the word? It's like it's fun to look at. Like it's enjoyable to look at. You're like, ooh, I like that. But then it's like when you actually, and then I think too, it's like the timers, knowing that hey, by this time tomorrow, this is gone, right? So it's like I have to make this decision, and that's the thing with like kind of like with like scam calls or something, right? Where a lot of people fall for it because it's like, hey, we need this immediately, or this is gonna happen, and people are like, oh, here's my social security, and it's like, what? It's like, what? Right? It's like, but if you had enough time to really sit down and think about it, you think like, okay, I don't need that, or like, do I really want that? Not really, because it's not offering me any benefits.
And just to make this clear, kids can play this game.
Absolutely. In fact, I've played with several kids, and they annoy me.
Yeah, so but that's a good point that we can bring up. I mean, even though some of these games they have the rating of mature, meaning that only adults should be able to play this, kids still have access to it, and kids are the population that have the least self-control, I mean. And you're telling me all of these things, and it's eye-opening because I'm not that much into the multiplayer scene, so I don't know what these storefronts are offering. I've heard about the Battle Pass. I've heard about a few DLCs or events that go on, but I was not aware that you could spend $45 on one knife skin. That's crazy. And I'm not saying this to shame you because I've done my stupid purchases as well because gaming is like that. But it is blowing my mind as to how the industry has, I don't want to use the word passively, just kind of gradually. The word is gradually. Taking you gradually, little by little with, I don't know if you're familiar with Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
Yes.
That was the first game that came up with the idea of DLC. They're the ones that came up with the stupid idea of putting horse armor into the Xbox Live store so you could buy it for, I think, like $4, something like that. And that was unheard of. That was egregious. And if a friend of yours saw you with that horse armor, they're like, dude, you're an effing idiot for buying that stuff. But now we've gotten to the point that it is expected to not only spend $40 or $70, and I know that some of these multiplayer games are free to play, but it's expected for us it's okay to spend $100 a month in this game. It's okay. It's normal. It's okay to every season to spend an extra amount. And I know that recently Apex Legends did something with the Battle Pass that everybody is like in an uproar about it. Do you know about that?
Yeah, it makes me so upset.
So what is it that happened with them?
So originally, with like battle passes, usually what it is you buy it via the game currency, right? So with Fortnite, it's you buy with V-Bucks, stuff like that. So one of the big changes that Apex did is now you have to use real money. You can no longer use their like in-game currency. Now you have to pull out your wallet, pull out that debit card, and be shablow, put in your information to buy it. And instead of being, I don't know how the tiers work for that game because I don't think it's just to 100. Yeah. I think it's to 120. Now they split it in half. So it's 60 and 60, and you have to buy both of them individually, and they're each $20.
So they split the Battle Pass into two.
Mm-hmm. And they're charging $40 total for both Battle Passes that you have to spend with real money. So essentially earning the in-game currency is useless to you because, what can you do with it now?
Yeah, I mean, usually, as always, when we were chatting about this, you were saying that they usually use this fake currency in order to detach you from using your credit card and putting real value to whatever it is that you're buying. So it's interesting. They kind of rolled back and they're like, no, you can actually buy this with real money. Our digital currency doesn't work anymore. But now, how would that work? So mid-season through, you're going to get a notification saying, hey, you got to buy the second part of the Battle Pass. Is that how it works?
I think so. I think it's you'll play, and then once you're kind of like done with like the first bit, you buy the second one. I'm not too sure because I haven't looked that much into it. But yeah, no, I'm like it's horrible because I'm like, at least with other games, like you know what you're getting. And then like a lot of things is like impulse purchasing where it's just like you don't really think about it. Or it's like Skyrim, right? Like I love Skyrim. Skyrim has been a game that I played since it came out. Yeah. Still something I play today. I bought it 3 times total. Yeah. Me too. I guess the first time was my brother. He bought it, so I guess that doesn't count for me. But then on my computer, or when was it? Okay, no, so just 2 times. On my computer, I bought it with Fallout 4 because there was a Game of the Year edition. So I got both of them for like $30. And then there was like, oh, there's the anniversary upgrade. And I was like, so you want me to spend another $20? I didn't, thankfully. I almost did. But I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, listen, like I love Skyrim. I'm like, it's like one of my favorite games of all time. But even I was like, okay, guys, let's cut the BS. What are you guys doing here? Like, come on. Like, you guys aren't adding that much for me to be like, wow, this is worth my $20.
It's funny because I think we're backwards that way because when you dangle that stuff in front of me, I get tempted. Skyrim, I know, has been released like, I don't know, 8 times differently. And all those 8 times, I've bought different editions. Like I have it on my Switch, I have it on Steam, I have it on PS5, on Xbox, on everything. And I felt just like you. I'm like, when the hell am I going to fire up PS5 Skyrim when I have it on my computer? And I can just download all the mods imaginable and just turn it in whatever the hell I want.
So real.
So these companies just really know how to just get into that brain and satisfy that part where you were saying, what was it, the id?
Yeah.
And so dealing with that impulse buy and putting those timers all the time, and I'm still flabbergasted because I grew up in an age of gaming that you went to the store, you bought the game, and transaction is done. That's it. At worst, if the game was amazing, they would just announce an expansion for that, and that's it. But now everything is just like packed with so many storefronts, and I'm asking you this now, Mystic. So if they come out with an announcement from Siege and they say, hey, we're gonna emulate, or I think this was a good idea, what Apex Legends did, what would you do?
Honestly, I would quit the game, just because before I was like, I had a friend who was very like, if he didn't like something that a company did, he would kind of like stop playing those games altogether, and I was like, well, that's excessive. But with Ubisoft, seeing everything that they've done, like the games they put out, I'm like, okay, like, come on. Like, you guys are literally feeding us crap and are just like, oh, guys, it's delicious. What do you mean? Which, I mean, or it also depends, too, because it's like, I don't really buy stuff on Siege. On console, I did. And, they recently ported over everything you bought on console, which made me really happy because I spent maybe, $50 on there. But and I never buy the Battle Pass because I'm like, there's never anything on there where I'm like, I want you. But so if they did that, I'd be upset in terms of like, kind of like, oh, what a crap company you are. But I would still probably play the game because I know that I wouldn't buy it. And if I'm tempted to buy it, all I have to do is just sit there and just be like, no, bad boy.
So the game is playable without buying the Battle Pass.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah. Now I understand. Yeah, because I thought that some of these games, like, yeah, you can play them, but you hit a paywall that unless you want certain things, you just have to buy the Battle Pass. But at least that works. So, yeah, that is pretty interesting. So then, focusing more on all of these tactics that they're using for mainly more younger people, the children, all that stuff, what do you see in the future of gaming? Do you think that this is just going to get a lot worse? Do you think that maybe with people just kind of waking up, like you said, to all of this, do you think they're just going to take a step back?
I think it's going to depend on the generation. So definitely like with like Gen Z, right? Like I think a lot of people are starting to realize like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like you guys are just like, this is awful, and people are starting to wake up to that. Because then some companies do bring out amazing games like the Wukong game that came out. I look at it and I'm like, I want you so bad. I'm like, I'm like, I'll take out my wallet and pay $70 for you right now, which I wouldn't, just because there's this like one part with a ton of spiders and I can't do spiders.
Okay.
But with Elden Ring, I remember I told myself I was gonna wait to get it on special. I watched some gameplay. I bought it without a second thought, and that is probably one of the greatest gaming purchases I've ever made in my whole life. Elden Ring and FromSoft and that everything that they do is perfect. I love it, and I will defend it with my life till the end of time. As opposed to like with like Ubisoft and Bethesda now, that they're just kind of, not bringing out good stuff. But yeah, so I think that kids, it's gonna be worse because they're gonna keep buying stuff. And even then, like, it's gonna be like everyone. Like, you're gonna have people from every age buying stuff like without thinking, and then you're gonna have some people that are gonna be like, all right, you know what, like I can't do this, like, sorry, this isn't for me anymore.
I was thinking the other day about Bethesda, because I loved them for the longest time. Like my first proper RPG was Elder Scrolls game. And so I loved the company for a long time, and which is why I just have like everything Skyrim and all that. And even more so, I've kind of rolled back time, and I've gotten to play the older games, Morrowind and Daggerfall, and bless the guy that created the Daggerfall. They recreated the game in a different engine, in Unity engine, so now you can add mods to it. So this guy just did it by himself. He's a saint. I will actually link his stuff at the description below, because he deserves to be seen. It's amazing. And so now that I see what Skyrim brought to the table, and then Bethesda recently releasing Starfield, and I played this game. I bought it day one, excited for it. This is Todd Howard's baby. He's like, this is my IP. I always wanted to do this. I'm like, well, great,
so
great. The guy was so passionate about it, so it's like, fantastic. Let's give it a try. And when I try this out, and I'm flabbergasted not just by the story, but this stupid engine that they keep using, that it's so outdated that it's like, what the hell are you spending your money on, Bethesda? That as I was playing that and I went back to Skyrim, I was thinking, what does Elder Scrolls 6 look like? Because Microsoft put all their money down as a bet on Starfield, thinking that it was going to be like the next huge thing and it's going to be an Xbox exclusive, and it didn't pan out. So the last chip that they have is just Elder Scrolls 6. So my thinking is here, because Bethesda has tried to monetize mods, and they kind of do now with the Creation Club thing.
Yeah, that was horrible.
But they managed to do that way after the mods were already out there, the free mods. But now they have the chance to start from scratch, from zero. So I'm thinking that there might be a possibility that they might have a storefront for mods. Do you think that's possible?
Absolutely. I think that big companies like the fallout for Bethesda is insane. Like that's got to be studied, because absolutely, I think they're looking to get money any way that they can, and that's something that I felt awful, because I remember like looking at the mods and then be like, why am I gonna buy this? I'm like this was like probably someone else's hard work that they did, and they're like, yoink, it's mine now. And I'm like, are you kidding me? No, and I completely agree, because I remember when I was like 12 or 13 when I played Fallout 3. Yeah. And I remember I was so scared of the centaurs, those little like weird guys that like, spit at you.
Awful.
Petrified me. It scared me, but I loved it. I played New Vegas, and I was like, this is so cool. The story was amazing, the DLC, everything about it. I'm like, you're perfect, and I love you. I played Fallout 4. I remember my brother was like, hey, I'm gonna go to the beach. You can play on my Xbox all you want. Play whatever. I played Fallout 4 for 8 hours. He came back. He told me, hey, I bought the Xbox One S, so I'll give you my Xbox One. And then I played those same 8 hours of content all over again on my account. And wow. I didn't bat an eye. I was like, I love this. This is insane. Because it was like from like Fallout 3 to New Vegas to 4, it was insane, right? The game looked better. The aiming was better. Like, I loved it. I was like, this is incredible. I'm like, wow. I was starstruck. And then same thing with Starfield. I was like, oh, I'm like, I get in space and you go pew, 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 pew with your little spaceship. And I was like, you're cooking. This is awesome. And then I couldn't even run the game. And it was so choppy. It looked like a slideshow. I was like, what? I'm like, huh? I tried to stream it. Oh my God. My stream was even worse. I was like, what? I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? I was really excited for it, but I think he was too ambitious too quickly. What I think that Starfield could have been amazing and incredible if they went slower. Like, I would have been okay if they said, hey, you know what? The game isn't ready yet. Give us another year. Give us more time. Because then at least I know, okay, like, you know, now they're really working towards it. Or simply starting off smaller scale and then each update adding more content. And not even like, oh, you have to pay for the planets. No. Just like, okay, like, guys, so it's like fully deck out Mars, fully deck out Earth, or whatever the starting area is, right? Like, make those full of content, and then as time progresses, add more planets for more stuff to do. Because I think, like, the problem is like, hey, go from this planet to this planet. Hi, person. Oh, thank you for this item. And then go back to this other planet. Like, there was no point for the space combat. Like, it was boring. Like, if there was, like, more for it, or it's like, you know, there's more story to it. Like a Star Wars game like that, I thought would have been perfect. Where I was like, holy, like, I remember telling my friend, I was like, dude, I have this cool idea for a Star Wars game, and I was like, and it's like, you choose your side, and there's like a diplomatic side to it, and you have to, like, get alliances, and you, like, forge enemies, and you do this, and you do that. I was like, right, and there's space battles, and there's planet battles, and blah, 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 blah. And he told me that, I forgot what the Star Wars game was called, but that it got canceled. I was like, really? And then he was like, but there's Outlaws, and then I remember watching, like, the trailer. I was like, this has potential. And then I remember seeing, like, oh, they're charging you $120 to play 3 days earlier and get some quests from Jabba the Hutt. I was like, so you're a bounty hunter, and you have to pay extra money to have Jabba the Hutt, which is, like, an iconic, like, bounty hunter dude from Star Wars, right? I'm like, he's the head honcho. I was like, and you have to pay extra money to have him? And then one of my friends, he was like, oh, I'm so probably going to get it. And I was like, you make interesting financial decisions. So, and then I watched on TikTok the other day what the quest was. It's a fetch quest. You go, you get an item, you talk to some people, you give it back to Jabba, and then that's the whole quest. And I was like, you're kidding. I was
Amazing.
I'm like, I can't. I was like, dude, I would sob. I would roll onto the floor and just start sobbing out loud if I paid that much money for that. And the quest is literally take this item, give it back.
Yeah. I mean, I that's what I've been doing. I've been streaming like newly released games. I played Wukong, I streamed it, reviewed it, and then I did Star Wars Outlaws. And the difference is like
Night and day.
just night and day. And I just get so fatigued because when I started up Star Wars Outlaws, as I'm really technical, so I just want to look at the graphics. I want to make sure that everything's working well and this and that. And as soon as I started up, I start noticing a lot of issues and errors and AI not working correctly, and it's just so disappointing because I saw the same thing with Starfield, and it's like, you're telling me that it is okay to release your project in this state, and at the same time you're asking us to pay full price, either $70 or $120 or whatever the hell it is, and it's like, it's okay, we'll patch it later. Supposedly we'll patch it later. And so it worries me because, focusing back on the Elder Scrolls, like, this is a game that is so hyped up because everybody is going to have in their mind, oh, this is Skyrim 2.0 and we're going to have something better. When in my mind, I think we're not. We just got a foreshadowing of what that might look like with Starfield. We know what they're doing with their engine, and that is nothing. They haven't updated nothing. Absolutely nada. And so Elder Scrolls 6 has already been in development for a long time. So that means that they haven't updated anything there either. And changing engines midway while you're developing something, that is bananas. You do not do that unless it's an emergency. So they're not going to do that. My suggestion is, for those of you that are curious and you guys want more Elder Scrolls, try out Elder Scrolls Online. Yes, it is an MMO, but you can actually play like a single player game, because the stories and the quests that they have there, side quests, all of them are fantastic, and they're fully voiced, and they're really, really good. And if you ever wanted to experience like the whole world of Tamriel, they already have it unlocked for you. So you can just go all the way to the tippy top of Skyrim, all the way down to Elsewhere South. So that's great. But I think that when they release Elder Scrolls, it'll be meh. I know that Todd Howard is going to hype it up, and he's going to say 15 million times the detail, and it's, now you can do this, and now you can do that. And I'm like, dude, I'm pretty much done. I was done in Fallout 76. I bought that game and I was like, are you serious? Yeah. So, for me, Bethesda is no longer the Bethesda that I fell in love with. Right now, my number one game developer, aside from software, is Larian Studios, the guys that made Baldur's Gate 3. Mm-hmm. I have never experienced any other RPG experience like Baldur's Gate 3. So, anybody that is a fan of RPGs, more so tabletop games, it's amazing how those things are. That game, how it plays, whew, brilliant. Alrighty, so let's just kind of wrap this up here. I don't want to take too much of your time. I wanted to see, what futures do you have for your future prospects? I mean, for your channel, projects, any ideas where you want to take this?
One of the main things is I'm going back to school like very soon.
Okay.
So it's like my content, I'm definitely gonna have to slow it down because I have to work 2 jobs to pay off school. I have all my classes, so it's gonna be a bit more difficult to manage all this. But I'm graduating this March, so I'm graduating
congratulations.
Thank you. A year and a quarter early, which is really nice, like financially.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then I talked to my family because I was like, hey, I'm like, school kind of burnt me out. So I was like, after this, and I was like, I want a gap year. And I was like, I want a year to where I can focus on content creation, make a career out of it, and do what I can with this. And I remember at first they were like super against it. They're like, then why'd you go to college? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? And I was like, well, I'm still not saying, hey, I'm going to be completely done with school. And I was like, I want to test things. I'm like, I want to dip my feet somewhere else just to make sure, hey, maybe this can fully work out for me. And then I'm hoping I can continue to upload like frequently after that. Do a ton more like streaming content. I've been thinking about doing like Lego streams where I build Legos.
Oh, cool.
Because I love Legos, dude. I'd be buying that stuff so impulsively. Like, I don't even think about it. I'm like, $100? I got that right here.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, just continue growing the community.
Yeah.
Keep being a place that people can come to and just, chill, have fun. And then maybe even join me for some games.
Of course. Absolutely. So I want to ask you one more question, and I usually do this to close out. What would you say? Let's see if we have a bunch of people who are listening to you right now and they want to get into content creation. What would you tell them as an advice?
Honestly, just do what you love and start. I think the biggest thing is everyone tries to be someone else. Everyone wants to be the next Vanoss. Everyone wants to be the next, anyone who's famous, anyone who has a name, they want to be the next that. Don't. Be yourself. Like you said earlier, the only thing you can bring to like YouTube now is yourself. Because there's 1,000 people trying to be like Vanoss, millions, who knows. The best thing you can do for yourself is to just do what you love, play what you like. Don't force yourself to play something you hate because you think it'll get views. If you love Minecraft, play Minecraft. If you love a really niche game, play that. I recently played a Doki Doki Literature Club. I didn't know anything about it. I had so many people join and tell me like, "Oh, have you never played this game?" And I'm like, "No." And they're just like, "Oh, dude, you're gonna love it." And then they're like, "Oh, dude, you're like this content creator that did this." And I was like, "Cool, dude. I have no idea who that is." But yeah, the most important thing you can do is just start and do what you love. And then you're gonna be disappointed, obviously, or maybe, who knows, maybe overnight you will get 1,000 subs. But you got to be realistic and just set little goals for yourself and just see every little thing as a victory. And just remember, you're doing this for yourself, not necessarily just for other people. So that little edit that you want to do that might take you an hour and you think no one's gonna notice it, do it. You're not losing anything, right? Well, I guess maybe time, but even then, you'll feel good about it after. Because when you watch back your videos a year from now, you're gonna be like, man, I cooked that up. I did a good job on that. And that's such a satisfying feeling.
Yeah, and instead of thinking about it like wasting time, think about it investing. You're investing time.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a return on investment. If you like it, you're getting that return with, happiness and passion. So anyway, so Mystic, any plugs that you want to put in, socials, anything?
Just YouTube, youtube.com/MysticX6 and then twitch.tv/MysticX6. I don't stream super consistently, but when I do, it's awesome and it's a good time. So you guys should definitely check it out. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Awesome. All right, so guys, I really want to thank MysticX6 for joining me and giving me about an hour and a half of his time. So I'm really, really happy that I got to interview him. We learned a lot, and also giving that psychological aspect to gaming. So you're going to find all of his stuff down in the description. I'm also going to put it right by his name so you can see it. And I'm going to upload a few snippets of TikTok as well. So you're going to see him around that area as well. So thank you so much for joining me, Mystic. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time. Bye.
See ya.